investors who are gathered here. But let me come to you, Mr. Kotak. While running an organization, sustainable development can't be the first thing you are thinking about. The first thing you are thinking about is that you have to pay, make money at the end of the day, pay for N number of costs, make money at the end of the day. How do you at all ensure that sustainable development comes into the thinking of your management and your employees? How do you infuse this when survival and beating the next guy is the first thing you have to do?
Lata, I'll give a slightly long answer to your short question. First of all, I believe this area of corporate governance and sustainability is an integral part of country governance and sustainability. And there are 2 or 3 factors which we need to be conscious about and which bother me. First of all, whether it's a country or a company, there is excessive challenges to short-termism, which is inevitably coming into our behavior. In the context of a country, let me give the example of environment. And I think Delhi is a great starting place. The fact of the matter is, I was just looking at some survey, the level of pollution in Delhi is nearly 2x Beijing. Now, this has not happened overnight. It's happened over the last 20, 30 years. But you look at the role of elected governments. Their time spans and horizons for taking decisions are normally shorter. And then if you take any central government, every year you have 4 or 5 state elections. So there is pressure on looking at state elections. So the whole area of short-termism is one of the challenges for governance. This gets more acute in the case of corporates, particularly with 24/7 television. Okay. Because you're always focused on, hey, what's this quarter's numbers? What is it that you've produced this quarter? How many percentage points you've done better and then worse compared to your estimates? And I think that is where responsible leadership needs to come in. The ability of leadership, whether it's management, and I'll come to the fiduciaries in addition to management, to be able to take a approach which is look through quarters, look through short-termism, to come to a medium-term perspective of how you make change. The second is, and in that context extremely important, is the role of fiduciaries. Whether it's management, whether it's board, both of them at some level are fiduciaries. But more importantly is external fiduciaries. I find one of the biggest challenges in the area of corporate governance and sustainability is external fiduciaries need to do a much better job. Auditors, accountants, I mean, as bank lenders or investors, we find it at times very difficult to trust accounts of not only unlisted companies, but many listed companies. We can't believe the numbers. So whose accountability is that for that fiduciary responsibility? Rating agencies. I mean, there is arbitrage and competition, unfair competition between different rating agencies. Actuaries, I mean, we've seen situations on that. And this challenge of short-termism begins to affect fiduciaries. And fiduciaries need to stand up as well. I mean, I see the same challenges with the asset management business, because they're all based on daily NAV, on the basis of which distributors are going out and marketing the funds. Who is looking through to take a medium-term perspective on decision-making? And therefore, whether it's governance of the country or the company, the key is ability to look at medium-term. I'm not saying long-term, because in this digital age, long-term is a dangerous word, but ability to see medium-term and combine it with very high level of integrity from all fiduciaries in the system. And that, I think, is the key.
Mr. Chouhan, if I can ask you, since you have spearheaded the effort of corporate governance and social responsibility over so many decades, if you can give corporate India, boards, as well as fiduciary, and I include the press and the 24/7 television and that, a short list of do's and don'ts that we can start with, so that at least in India, we take social responsibility to the next level. What's the first 3 things you would want all these entities to do?
That's a difficult one, Lata. But anyway, let me attempt. I think the point which Mr. Sharma raised is the very important point, that within society, the ecosystem of our governance, the interests of the different parties are at cross purposes with each other. And that's where the dilemmas come in decision making. Let me give you an example that in Mumbai, most of us complain about the phenomenal prices of the real estate, let's say. And they say it's bubble, it'll come down, it'll come, it never comes down. So right from our society section, there are certain investors who think that the prices should not come down. Right in this society, there are purchasers, there are buyers who think that prices should come down, then I'll be able to buy an affordable house. So this is a very typical case where the interests of different sections of society are at cross purposes with each other. Therefore, the test of the ethics of a person is when one is in dilemma. When there is a clear-cut case, one can take decision. So in the afternoon, we had a very interesting case by Sandeep Bakshi, who is ICICI Pru Managing Director, and he gave us a very interesting thing that Prudential of UK, though the victims of war are not covered in the policy, yet the then CEO decided to settle the claims of the war sufferers. Yeah, and as a result, Prudential suffered a huge loss. And in the course of his tenure, that particular CEO had a very tough time. But as a result of that one decision when he was in great dilemma and he felt what is fair for the society and the people who have lost their life, he created a brand which lasted and sustained for 60 long years. So that's the answer. I can't give you 3, but I'm saying whenever you are in a situation when there's a dilemma and the decision is not in your self-interest, how do you behave? And that's where the governance principles, and I talk of only 3, transparency, accountability, and equanimity. And equanimity is more important. And coming to just one quick thing, because I've been a disciple of Mervyn and Sir Adrian Cadbury's, 3 independent directors, quality I'd like to emphasize here, that the independent directors should have vision, should have integrity, and should have courage. And without courage, earlier 2 qualities have no meaning. He said that one single independent director, and our own Global Advisory Board member, J.J. Irani, keeps saying this, that you don't need 50% independent directors on the board. You need one good independent director who is value-based and who has the courage to raise the issue, and not with the intention of rocking the boat, but with the intention of, have you thought about this? Very skillfully trying to help the management and the board to fine-tune the decision-making. That's all I have to say.
Mr. Sinha, last thoughts on the issue as a thought leader. What should be the role of citizens, actually, as well as governments in ensuring that sustainable development always remains the touchstone of every decision?
I think both the governments at every level and the people are now more acutely aware of the dangers of the opposite to sustainability. And this is something that we are experiencing in our daily lives. So if there is pollution in Delhi or Mumbai, children not going to school, you are not able to drive because of the odd and even in Delhi, you are experiencing it on a daily basis. So people are aware. Governments are aware. Are they doing enough? That is a question which is difficult to answer firmly in the affirmative, because there is always a question of more things which need to be done. But I'd like to make another point to you, and that is that especially in politics, perhaps also in business, this conflict between the short term and the long term that Uday Kotak referred to is a constant struggle. And everywhere, everyone is trying to look at the short term, ignore the medium term or the long term, because it's the short term which is paying in the short run, and not the medium term and the long term. And you only have to look at the electoral records of finance ministers in India to find out how they have fared electorally. And they have not fared very well for the simple reason that they have probably cared for the medium and the long term, which has not gelled with the people. So this is a conflict which is there. This is a conflict which will continue to exist, and this is a conflict that we have to overcome. I mean, there's shortcoming that we have to overcome, and the only way in which it can be overcome, to my mind, is to reach out to the people, make them understand what the issues are, what their stakes are, and perhaps carry conviction with them.
Thank you, Mr. Sinha, for the lesson you have given us from a lifetime of public service. Well, that really is the key takeaway from our thought leaders, that political leaders, boards, and corporate leaders and independent directors have the primary responsibility in thinking about sustainable development much more than the next political term or the next quarter's result. But the ecosystem of academics, citizens, the press, auditors, rating agencies, markets, if you can say that, have a responsibility to make sustainable development as the touchstone, and then perhaps market returns, profits, because ultimately those can get wiped out for many quarters, for many years, with one single unsustainable decision. Gentlemen, thank you very much for alerting this audience and for the television audience to the importance of sustainable development. We do hope that this concept becomes a touchstone of decision making in the days to come. Thank you very much.